We're here on Daf Lamed Hey Omid Beis. And the Gemara raises a question, Masechet. This question, Masechet, just to remind ourselves of the context of the Gemara on Daf Lamed Hey Omid Aleph that we learned last week, is about the fact that the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim, when he goes inside the Kodesh Kodashim for the Avodah, the Ketores, and this is during the morning hours of Yom Kippurim, he has to wear the very finest linen. We know that the begadim of the Kohen Gadol, when he does the Avodah, the special Avodah of Yom Kippurim inside the Kodesh Kodashim, he wears big day lavan, 4 begadim that are made of lavan. There's no zahav, there's no gold. It's absolutely unacceptable for the Kohen Gadol to go l'tnai b'lefnim in the Kodesh Kodashim with gold. And he's going to go into the Kodesh Kodashim, our friend the Kohen Gadol, twice during Yom Kippur, once in the morning hours and once in the evening. In the morning, he goes in for the Avodas HaKetores, and in the afternoon, he goes to remove the kaf umachta. And in both cases, he goes into the Kodesh Kodashim with big day lavan. However, he wears a different set of big day lavan. There was one set of big day lavan that was designated for the morning ketores, and a different one for the afternoon ketores. And the one for the morning ketores is a significantly more expensive than the afternoon ketores, because the linen that was imported for the beautiful big day lavan of the Kohen Gadol in the morning was worth 18 money, a very significant sum of money, because it was the finest linen that you get your hands on. Whereas in the afternoon, he would wear inferior linen in his big day lavan, and they were only worth 12 money. Basically, I'll ask you a kasha on the top of Daf Lamed Hey Omid Beis. The pasuk says in Yechezkel Hanavi, "V'lovshu begadim acherim." When the Kohen Gadol goes in the second time around for Hotzas Kaf Umachta, he should wear quote unquote begadim acherim. V'lo yikachu es ha'am bibig dehem. We'll see in a minute what that means. But in any event, what does the word begadim acherim mean? Other garments. Clearly, he has to change his garments from the morning to the afternoon. But the Gemara assumes that the word acherim means to upgrade it. These begadim are not enough. They're not sufficient. They're on a lower level. You spent X amount of money. Now I want you to spend even more amount of money for the levisha, for the begadim that you wear in the afternoon. The big day lavan have to be upgraded because these are begadim acherim. As if to say, you didn't do enough if you were to wear the same begadim on that level of quality. You have to upgrade the quality of the begadim when you get to the afternoon. We're on an ascent, not a descent. Gemara says, no. That's not what acherim means. Lo, acherim pchusim. The pasuk in Yechezkel is emphasizing that he should wear a second set of begadim in the afternoon, and not wearing the same set of begadim. But in fact, what Yechezkel Hanavi is telling us is that the acherim, the second set of begadim, are of an inferior quality. They're less valuable, less expensive. They don't come from the top linen in the world. And in relationship vis-a-vis the first begadim or levanim that he wore in the morning, these are a secondary set of begadim. So the word acherim now means pchusim, not ascent, but descent. Not to appreciate, but to devalue it. Now, there's another part of this pasuk here that intrigues the mind. Let's go back. He says, "V'lo yikachu es ha'am bibigdehem." What is this about? It seems, Rabbi Osai, that the minhag was that at the end of the day, after the Kohen Gadol finished his avodah, he would mingle with the people, perhaps share some of his highlights of the Avodas Yom Kippurim experience, and perhaps bless them, because the Kohen Gadol reached a tremendous level of holiness on Yom Kippur. But Yechezkel, recognizing such a minhag, he tells the Kohen Gadol that he should not do so while he's wearing his special begadim for Yom Kippurim, but rather lo yikachu es ha'am, when he's embarking upon this encounter with the people, big day, while he's wearing his big day kahuna, he should put on big day chol, regular garments, when he is finished with his avodah and he is intermingling with the people. And it's really interesting that Yechezkel HaNavi is adding something to the law of the Torah. And this is what we call Torah Sheba'al Peh. And that touches on a phenomenally fundamental issue in Kol HaTorah Kula. What is the status of a pasuk in Tanakh? Is it a Doraisa? Is it Torah Sheba'al Peh? Is it Torah Sheba'al? Many, many different nuances. Here we have a case of that which is Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's nowhere in the Torah, and yet it's incorporated into the Torah Sheba'al. Tani Rav Huna Bar Yehuda. We have a brisa now of Rav Huna. Amrile, according to another tradition, it was Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Acher shekolsa avodas tzibur oein she'asalo imo ktones lovsha v'ovid ba avodas yachid ubilvad she'im serena l'tzibur. Now this brisa would seem to be addressing the Kohen Gadol and the big day kahuna that's worn by the Kohen Gadol, without which his avodah is completely disqualified. So big day kahuna are absolutely critical to the avodas Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur. They have to be mishal tzibur. The funds that we've been dealing with, whether it's the 18 mon in the morning, the 12 mon in the afternoon, etc., have to be purchased. This linen has to be purchased by the gizbar, who's in charge of supervising Hegdesh from the Trumas Halishka, from the public Hegdesh of the Tzibur funds. And now, what we're seeing here in this brisa of Rav Huna of Rav Shmuel is that his mother, the Kohen Gadol's mother, is weaving a garment which is absolutely critical to the Kohen Gadol's avodah. And the brisa adds a stipulation, and that is bilvad she'im serena l'tzibur. If she's just creating this beged and giving it as a gift to the Kohen Gadol, she wants her son, the Kohen Gadol, to wear her beged that she manufactured. And we're going to see this later on in Tanakh as far as Chana is concerned, when she manufactures a beged for Shmuel HaNavi, her son. But here, she wants to boast, so to speak, about the fact that she created this beged, and the brisa confirms that the Kohen Gadol could wear this beged, but only with the following stipulation, that she agrees to donate the beged to the tzibur, and she agrees to completely forego and forfeit any private ownership that she might have over these begadim. She can't even say, let's be partners. I'm going to go into a partnership with Hegdesh. I'm going to own this beautiful garment that I wove for my son, the Kohen Gadol, and Hegdish will own the garment. No, 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 no. It has to be the exclusive possession of Hegdish. Ubilvad shim serena letzibur. Now, keep in mind that the Brisa mentions one of the begadim, and we know that the Kohen Gadol wore 4 begadim when he went lifnai v'lifnim. Which beged is singled out here? The ketones. I never understood the English translation tunic, but anyway, the ketones covers most of the body of the Kohen, his torso and his lower parts. He's wearing mitnasayim that are close to his legs, but the ketones covers most of the limbs of his body. And it seems that of all the begadim that the Kohen Gadol wore, lifnai v'lifnim, most important of all of them was the ketones, because it covered the majority of his body. And again, I don't want to go into the Jewish philosophy, but it seems that in Jewish thought, every limb of the Kohen Gadol is sanctified and participates in the avoda and the kapara that's brought about through the avoda of the Kohen Gadol. Every limb of his body plays a role. Man is a composite. He's an organism made up of different limbs. And the ketones of all of begadim encompasses the limbs of his body, or at least the majority of the limbs of his body, and represents and reflects the kedusha of the Kohen Gadol. So the ketones has tremendous significance. The Rambam seems to indicate that when our Gemara, based on Yechezkel Hanavi, decides that the Kohen Gadol has to change his big day lavan from morning to afternoon, the reference is exclusively to the ketones. The ketones was made of very fine linen, and it had to be the most expensive linen for the avodah in the morning, and a less expensive linen for the avodah in the afternoon. That's referring specifically to the ketones. As far as the other begadim that the Kohen wore, they were the same identical begadim in the morning and in the afternoon. The only beged he had to change, and in this case devaluate, going down one level, is the ketones. Now, interesting is the language of the Brisa. It says, Achar shekolsa avodas tzibur, then lo shavi ovid ba avodas yoch. Now, first I want to make a linguistic analysis, just taich as we call it. The translation of the concept of avodas hatzibur as opposed to avodas hayochim is morning versus afternoon. What do I mean? The kapara of the tzibur of Klal Yisrael depends upon the ketoros, and that's what the Kohen Gadol did in the morning hours. Could he wear the linen garments that were manufactured by his mom when he goes lifnai v'lifnim and he does the avodas haketoros? The strong impression you get is absolutely not. The linen that was used to manufacture the begadim of the morning, Torres, that big day lavan, had to be imported from the finest linen in the world. When we get to the afternoon, that's called avodas yachid. Why? What's the etymology here of Yochid? He's going into the Kodesh Kadoshim to remove the kaful machta. That doesn't generate any kapara for the tzibur. That's only a mitzvah of kvod umora migdash. To leave the kaful machta, which with its shirayin, part of which was burnt and part of which wasn't burnt, and to leave these kalim to sit there for 365 days until he's allowed to go in, as we read yesterday in the parsha, into the Kodesh Kadoshim a year from now and Yom Kippurim, that's not Mora Mikdash. That's not appropriate for the respect and the awe that we have for the Mikdash. That's called, in the language of this brisa, Avodas Hayochid. It's the personal obligation that evolves on the shoulders of the Kohen Gadol, not relevant to anyone else. It doesn't generate any kapara, but to make sure and guarantee that the kavod and the mora of the Beis Hamikdash is preserved. And therefore he goes in the second time to remove the kaful machta. At this point, we're talking about not the most important avodah. It's not an avodah for the sake of the tzibur and a kaparas tzibur. And therefore we devaluate the bagadim, the bad, meaning the linen that he wears in the second round. And it expresses itself in the fact that we're not importing the linen from who knows where, but rather his mother is creating from her, her weaving yarn, that linen for the ketones of the Kohen Gadol of her son. So the Gemara asks Shita. Why do I need this price? Now, I believe that in order to understand the Gemara's Pshita, we have to enter into the world of paradox. There's a paradox here. The Torah requires that when the Kohen Gadol goes in the second round in the afternoon for Otzos Kafel Machta, that he wear big day bad. He's not wearing his ordinary clothing. Apparently, this is an avodah. And if it's an avodah, it requires big day kahuna. There's no such thing as an avodah without big day kahuna. And if it requires big day kahuna, it requires that it be purchased from the moment of the tzibur, and that these begadim belong to the entire tzibur. It's not the private property of the Kohen Gadol. So we have here a whole chadgadim, a whole domino theory of premises one after the other. We have a premise that the Torah requires big day bad when the Kohen Gadol goes in the afternoon to remove the kaful machta. We therefore conclude that removing the kaful machta in the Kodesh Kadoshim is an avodah. We therefore conclude that the avodah requires big day kahuna because there ain't no such thing as an avodah without big day kahuna. And now we raise the following paradox. If it's big day kahuna, it has to be purchased from Mamanat Tzibur, from the Trumas al Lishka. How could the Kohen Gadol's mother bring a donation on, a contribution on behalf of her son, the Kohen Gadol, and that is the ketones? It's not Mamanat Tzibur, it's her private property. She went to the wool store and she bought wool. I shouldn't say wool, that's a bad word. She went to the local store and she bought linen, not wool. How could this be kosher as big day kahuna? And apparently, the Gemara thinks that the requirement to wear big day lavan in the case of the second round in the afternoon for Otzos Kaful Machta is not an avodah. There's no kapon. There's no aktor al gabi mizbeach. at least in the morning, he does a haktarah on the gecholim that he took from the mizbeach when he dug the machta into the gecholim, and on that he burns the ketores. Rotzos kafu machta. Where's the avodah? And the Gemara thinks if that be the case, then the wearing of Bigdei Kahuna is a reflection or a kiyum of kvod kachi kachi. Don't go into the Kodesh Kodashim one time in the year, or twice, but one day of the year, with ordinary begadim. That's like an insult to the Kodesh Kodashim. If there's a mitzvah, obligation of Mora Migdash. And that's why the Kohen Gadol has to clear out the Kafel Machta. Then Mora Migdash likewise obligates wearing Bigdei Kahuna. Says the Gemara. If it's a din of Kvod Migdash, then who cares whether or not these beautiful begadim were purchased from the Trumas HaLishka, or they were contributed by the mother of the Kohen Gadol. Beauty is beauty. Kavod is kavod. There's a great esteem in wearing the ketones that was manufactured by the mother of the Kohen Gadol. Why would I have entertained anything less than that? Says the Gemara, there's a tremendous chiddush. And that is that she must be moser the beged, this ketonis that she created, to the tzibur, which means one of two things. Either Gemara is now going to establish that going into the Kodesh Kodashim on the second round for Kafel Machta is an avodah, and therefore requires Bigdei Kahuna, which means they're owned by the tzibur. Or alternatively, the Gemara thinks that even within the context of kavod, it's not a kavod to take even very beautiful and emotional begadim. You've got to take Bigdei Kahuna with all the strict requirements of Bigdei Kahuna. No, she really has vested interest. She wants psychologically. She wants her son, the Kohen Gadol, to wear begadim. She may make a verbal declaration that I hereby waive my rights and my ownership to these begadim. I'm giving them over, transferring over to the tzibur. But I don't know if in her heart of hearts she means it sincerely. Kamash Malan. This is the great chiddush of the Brisa, that we can rely on her statement and take it honestly at face value. She does completely remove herself, her ownership over the begadim. She gives it straight and totally to the Hegdesh, not retaining any ownership for herself. However, if that be the case, why can't the Kohen Gadol wear his mother's created manufactured ketonis in the morning as well? And here in the footnote, he quotes the Tosas HaRosh. I don't have access to the Tosas HaRosh, but he says that this concept that she is makna to the tzibur, meaning she transfers ownership over the begadim that she created to the tzibur, that only applies and is only permitted in the so-called korbanat tzibur, avodas hatzibur. I'm sorry, did I say avodas hatzibur? What I meant to say was, let me say it again, only for avodas hayochid. In the case of avodas hatzibur, which is the morning avodah, the ketoris lifnai v'lifnim, the Tosas HaRosh says that clearly this would not be permissible for her, the mother of the Kohen Gadol, to create Godin. And we're going to rely that she gave it to the tzibur for the sake of the korbanat tzibur. That we won't do. And I think what he's saying is there's too much at stake over here. The entire enterprise of Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, his going lifnai v'lifnim, his effectuating a kapara, an atonement for the sins of Klal Yisrael, is conditional on the fact that A, these are kosher big day kahuna, and B, that they belong totally, exclusively to the tzibur. There's too much at stake over here to rely on the fact that she was Mosra L'Tzibur Yafa Yafa and completely removed her ownership over these books. Amru Olav will conclude with this. Al Rabbi Shmuel ben Pa'avi. We've been talking about maxing out with the two morning and afternoon at 30 mana. Well, Rabbi Shmuel had a rich mother. She spent 100 mana creating a ketones for her son Rabbi Shmuel the Kohen Gadol. The Lovshah, the Ovid Ba Avodas Yachid, and he, Rabbi Shmuel, when he went in the second time into the Kodesh Kodashim, he wore this ketones that was created by his mother, and he agreed that he, even though he's the Kohen Gadol receiving an expensive beged from his mother, he agreed to give it over, transfer ownership to the tzibur on a beged that he could sell in the market for 100 mana. Now, this next Gemara is mine. Amru Olav al Rabbi Elazar ben Charsum. He was a really wealthy guy, as we'll soon see. He owned cities. Sha'asa solo imo ksones mishtei ribui. Ribui is 10,000. Shtei ribui is 20,000 mana. Now, we were talking about 18 mana, 12 mana. Then we jacked it up, in the case of Rabbi Shmuel's mother, to 100 mana. Now, in the case of Rabbi Elazar ben Charsum, we're jacking up to 20,000 mana. I mean, it's a fortune of money. But for lo hinichu echav hakon v'lovsha mipnei shenira ke'or. Imagine, how could you possibly spend 20,000 mana on a linen garment, a ketones? And the answer is that they refined the linen, the thread, so much that it became sheer linen. Nira ka'arim. You could see through the linen. That's how fine it was. And you would see the body of the Kohen. The ketones was meant to cover the body of the Kohen. Therefore, they wouldn't allow him to use these begadim that were created by his mother Shlicha at the cost of 20,000 mana. Gemara says, is it really true that you could see transparent through these this linen, his naked body? Omar Man, we have a statement that chutim kaful shisha, that the threads of the linen garments that were used and worn by the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim were six-fold. They took 6 threads and wound them together. That's a very thick thread. There's no way you can see through it. It can't be transparent. Omar Abaye, v'chamra b'mizga. You could see through it. Even though these threads were doubled and tripled, there were 6 threads that were wound together. You could still see it like a thick glass. You pour wine into a thick glass, chamra, into a mizga. Mizga is always glass. So you have a very thick wine glass, made of very thick glass. And yet, try an experiment. Pour wine into the wine glass and you will be able to see the wine inside. It's transparent, even though it's thick. So therefore, thickness is not exclusive of transparency. You could have something that's very thick and it's transparent if it's very thin and it's like glass. And therefore, the Chachamim objected to the Kohen Gadol wearing this super duper expensive garment because at the end of the day, it was transparent. Okay, this is where we'll stop for today. And in Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow we'll pick it up at Tanu Rabbah. Wish everyone a great day.